Creating a successful business has never been so simple. Welcome to the Journey of Entrepreneurship podcast.
Your hosts, Richard Phipps and Ross Lerorio,
Will provide valuable insights that will help you turn your ideas into reality.
Thank you and welcome back to another episode of the Journey of Entrepreneurship. My name is Rosler and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Richard Phipps. How are you doing today, Mr. Phipps?
Awesome as usual, my friend. I try to keep it that way.
Glad to hear that. And we are also joined by a special guest today, a close friend of Mr. Phipps's, Dr. Victor Agard. And we will be discussing art galleries and the business aspect of opening an art gallery. Mr. Phipps, if you wouldn't mind introducing and letting us know a bit about Dr. Agard.
Well, he's an awesome young man, kind of a modest, humble fellow, but talented beyond most. I've known him for a number of years, and his academic accomplishments are legendary, and his skills with a charcoal pencil as well as a paintbrush and oil is also in that category. He's done a lot of work in England at the universities there. He's now a professor in art at the colleges on the island in Barbados. He's very accomplished in the area of education, and helping others to progress in that area. And it is with that in mind that I invited him to be a part of the podcast, because I know he's in his work has done a lot of work relative to setting up art studio, the fundamentals for setting up art studios. And people refer to artists generally as struggling or starving. And I know that at least they could go through that phase, but with Dr. Agard's assistance and guidance, I'm sure we can get him from the struggling and starving to something a bit more beneficial. So therefore, the reason for the invitation. I know he's done his share of struggling as well, which makes him a real authority in this area, because he's been there, done that, and he's one of the most successful young men I know in education and art as a combined process. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Victor Agard, and who hails from the island of Barbados, one of its best, most talented citizens. And I'm sure many of the folks there would agree with that distinction based on the way they regard him on the island.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Agard.
Well, thank you. At first, I must wonder who he's speaking about. Nevertheless, thank you. I'll see what I can do if I can.
Thank you so much. And the first question, in a general sense, what does it take to open an art studio, and what should any listeners interested in opening one know before starting?
Well, interestingly, anytime a person is thinking of doing anything, including setting up a business, an art studio, whatever it is, one should plan. That's the first thing you must do. Plan what it is you're doing. And from that, because any business that you are trying to do, you should know things about what you're doing. If you're a teacher, you must do a lesson plan. If you are an entrepreneur, you should even do much more planning, but it's similar. And I like to get persons to ask some key questions. And one of those questions is, have I honestly got what it takes to go it alone? What legal form should my business take? Shall it be a sole trader, a partnership, limited company, a franchise? How do I set about making a proper business plan? How do I put my business across to potential customers via advertising and marketing? How do I cope with headaches like taxes, national insurance, bookkeeping? Where should my business be located? Can I work from home? Should I lease? Should I invest in premises? Which organizations can I get advice and assistance from? And what would my legal obligations and responsibilities be? Those are some of the key questions that I believe any person wishing to set up a business should think about.
And I think you brought up a great topic, as well as Mr. Phipps did touch on it earlier. I feel that a lot of artists don't see art and being an artist as a business or being an entrepreneur. Why do you think that is?
Well, the answer simply is that an artist, normally, if you're a visual artist, especially, visual artists see themselves as having a talent, and then most of them use that talent just to show what they can do. And most artists who are visual artists are not necessarily thinking of the business of art. And that is why quite often you have people who understand that and know the business aspect and will manage such persons. And so the artist himself or herself is not really the, the manager of what is happening. He's just supplying the art that people, the manager will then sell.
So generally, the artist should look at it as any other business in a general sense, as they have a product, a commodity that they have to sell, and they should understand their profit margins and how to structure pricing accordingly.
Yeah, yes, they should, but most times people are not educated into that kind of thinking, right? So education is very necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you're doing, and I guess school systems, if they are thinking of what is going to happen, look at what has happened, and therefore try in there the makeup of the curriculum should try to from small get students into understanding that anything that they can do could become a business, and therefore the syllabus should include principles of business. And I like to say too, quite often people go to university, they may have done something like English, but then they don't see themselves as being in any business after they've completed that degree. Now, many will go on to teaching. Then teaching only leaves you in one room, so to speak. If they were seeing themselves as having the potential for expanding on the knowledge that they learn, then they can see how they can move from just having that basic knowledge into using that basic knowledge to improve themselves.
It's interesting, Dr. Agard, just chiming for a minute, you referred to headaches such as taxes and insurance and a couple other items, and people really see those areas, accounting and payroll, as challenging, but they are certainly a part of the business process, and you have to accommodate those things in the process. So, as you said, if a person doesn't have the skills to do those things, they should look for assistance or identify resources that can enable them to work through the business process and have those things added to complement their business activities by other people who have the skills to do so. So
Yes,
I thought that was
the-
interesting.
very good. Anytime you are moving out from that that seat where you have what you call a talent, but you don't think of gathering information enough to help you to move from there. But then you will have a lot more difficulty. But then there are persons and groups and organizations that look after those things. And in any case, if you're thinking of moving up the ladder, you should also plan on how you can get from the bottom rung to the top rung. You should plan it. It does not mean that your plans will necessarily happen the way that you plan them, but you must plan.
And in addition
Good.
to the planning phase of creating an art studio or becoming an artist, what are some specific resources that are available to artists that either want to just sell their art or eventually want to open up an art studio?
Okay, opening up a studio is is one thing that many people will think of because it seems like something they can say is my own business. But if you forget that owning a business or being an entrepreneur is hard work, because first of all, if you want to open an art studio, you have to ask yourself, what is the best location for my art studio? You have to ask yourself, are there any other art studios around? Are there people who will come to see the art I have in my business? And there are many questions that will come up because um, you still have to look at, are you able to supply the amount of art pieces that if you have a glut of people coming to buy all your art, if you sold all out in one day, what will you do the next day? Are you an artist yourself? Can you produce enough art that would sort of provide for the demand? You have to think about how you're going to finance your business because financing the business, having a studio means that you have to look at the cost of electricity, the help that you might need. You have a person sitting there that will welcome the persons who come into the art studio and who should also know something about the art that you have on display. And it goes on. There are lots of other things that I could bring up, which, if you ask the questions, then I might find them.
Right. And you touched on something that I definitely wanted to address as well. With determining the location, I think that's an important factor. I've met a few people who are interested in opening up a studio, but the prices of the locations that they're considering opening it are way out of their affordability,
Yeah.
unfortunately. What are some things that should be considered when choosing a location, and what route should the artist take if where they want to be, such as in a downtown area, isn't feasible for them?
Hmm. Well, see, that is a necessary aspect of setting up a business in a particular location. Yes, location is necessary because you will be thinking about the people who will pass through that location. You'll also be thinking about what kinds of persons will want to come to that area because you don't want to just set up something that only a certain group of people will pass. You want a variety of persons that might be interested in coming to our studio um, or our gallery. Now, in your planning, therefore, you should try to think about the finance that you can get if you don't have it. How can you borrow money? If you borrow money, you got to remember that you have to pay back. Uh, and
Do you really have to pay back out?
sorry, if you borrow, you must pay back. You should.
Okay.
Right. And you know, there are banks and organizations that might be willing to lend you money, but they will ask questions. That's why you need to have a business plan, at least for the first year. So you need money to start with. Because starting up means that you're going to look at how you're going to organize the paintings in your now new studio. You have to organize what attractions you will need because that's where advertising, another cost will play a part. You have to also look at the the opening times. You know, if you have to pay somebody to spend extra time, are you going to pay them overtime? Are you going to do all those aspects of the business by yourself? And there, these are some of the things that you need to look at. Now, the, the planning in terms of finance also means you have to look at how, at the end of a certain period, what you have will produce enough to get you through to the next period. Because at the end of, if you have enough money to get you through for 1 month, there's no certainty that you will get all that you had in the gallery sold. So the pieces that were sold, and then you have to make sure that the money you get can be other things that are happening. And do you have things in your gallery to make people feel comfortable? Like somebody might want water, somebody might want a drink. Are you supplying those things? Because all that's part of making the customer feel um, comfortable and that they will spend according to what their needs are. One of the things that you need to understand, if you are setting up an art studio somewhere in a city area,
Hmm.
you should bear in mind that there are other businesses in that area, and you should seek to find out how lure them into your your business that will be of benefit to you.
Hmm.
Because that's what you want. You want persons passing through. It's not just a matter of having a studio, an art studio set up. Because there are many people who may not have that inclination to think about art unless there's something that causes them to do so. Um,
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask that, Agard. You mentioned earlier setting up a studio. Now, uh, I wasn't sure what advice would you give to somebody in terms of the setup in a studio. Do you have is that the most expensive paintings in one location, least expensive in another? Are they intermixed? Is it the most attractive painting? How do you decide what's the most attractive painting? Is that how do you set up to draw people into your studio?
Well, it would be futile to think that the work of art that you value or haven't interested in that somebody else will. Art is one of those things that people say um, must be appealing to the onlooker. Um, Therefore, you might see something on a canvas that looks just like a line to you, but somebody else passing and be intrigued by the shape, the movement, the color that you were not thinking of, and therefore you might be surprised that that same person might pass and decide, look, I want this in my business, I want this in my house, and therefore be willing to pay $2 million for it. And then
That
you
would be
are,
nice.
but you're
Retire.
flabbergasted. You're flabbergasted at the fact that somebody just look at a line on canvas and pay so much for it. But see, that is why when you are setting up, you should try to gather as many different forms of art that you can hang in the gallery or you can have in the gallery. So you have sculpture. You have sculpture of different materials. You have um, paintings. And one of the things that I should mention here, if you yourself as the business person or the artist, you might be able to do one or two of the different aspects of art. But there are the people around who you can liaise with, and they might be doing something completely different from yours, but you want to encourage them to bring their work to your gallery so that you have the variety that you yourself could not provide. But yet you're providing it because you are including other artists, other forms of art, and a person coming to your gallery will come because they see that they can choose from a variety of works of art, different
That's a
styles
smart
of
idea.
art. Yes. So, me, there are ways to source the information and the work for your art. Now, speaking of that, persons who provide art like that, they normally will want something from doing it. So many art galleries invite artists to bring work and offer them, you know, the opportunity to do so with the proviso that you pay them um, a percentage of what it sells for.
So that's
Some
like
people,
artwork on consignment.
yeah, right. So some people will tell you, okay, well, you bring your work, I'll take 30%. And they argue that the 30% has to do with the fact that you're using their gallery, they're providing the lighting, the um, the persons to deal with the persons that come in and having to explain to them who the artist is, and because some people like to know those questions, the answers to those questions. And so this consignment thing can be a way of, you know, ensuring that you have a supply of work for your gallery. So you want your gallery to be a source of work for people who might just be itinerant people passing through, and therefore, if it's there, it's there. Um, some people do portraits, and there are several ways to do portraits. You know, it makes no sense nowadays to think that you can take a photograph And that would be the best portrait because people like difference. And a painting will gather more from a person wanting the portrait than by an artist who paints it than than a photographer, unless the photographer now has mastered the methods of creating a difference in the portrait. Although it's a photograph, there are many ways to use different colors and, and different um, kinds of treatments that would make that photograph a work of art. And that's what we want. It is art.
You amazed me a few days ago, Dr. Agard, when you said a photo, um, a photo can be brought to the mood in a photo can be brought to life in a painting in a way that it couldn't be done in a photo. And I was amazed by that statement. I wondered how that was possible. But we could save that for another broadcast because I know that might be a lesson in art. But it was certainly something that caused me to pause and think about that process for a moment.
Well, any production, any art is, if it is to be considered something good, you have to look at your composition. That is what you use to put parts together to create it. And say, for example, if one were to look at work by Van Gogh, Vincent Van Gogh, many years ago. Now, if you look at history, he used to paint just like everybody else until he decided that rather than be a photograph, now, because artists in those times they have the camera, so their work were like how we would consider a photograph now, realistic. But then there are those who understood art as the impression of your, the expression of your impression. Sorry. So art, if you express it in a way, let's show the basic minimal parts that would still let you see, listen, this is a hand, even though I don't have all the details of fingernails, etc. If I use lines in several ways that can make it move, because those are the things that make a work of art interesting to persons. So the photograph, the photographer have the facilities to do such things. It's just that he or she herself now have to know how to make use of the technology and not only the composition, but is there movement in it? Do you want movement to go off the canvas to make you look at one point, which is the focal point, and just stay at that focal point, or you want them to look at the focal point and then move off into another one? So color plays an important part, and the size of the color, the intensity of the color, and when you look at the movement, the composition, the balance, because balance means that when you move from here to there, you don't want them to move off and drop off. You want them to move from one point to the next. So you create some sort of symmetrical or asymmetrical balance. And then you look at the appeal. Is it appealing to me only? Or have I thought about what might appeal to other people? So you don't know exactly what appeals to other people. It's left up to them. But if you're creating that kind of the simple principles of good art, you would think of those things. Basically.
I think art, Yeah, I'm learning more today from you in this conversation than I learned in all my years while I was in school studying. But
Thank you.
the last question that I'll ask is this is one that I hear a lot, and I'll leave the rest of it up to Mr. Rossler Oriole to finalize. But they say red is a catchy color. It spells danger or it spells power. In your opinion, Dr. Agard, which is correct?
Both.
Well, okay,
It's
I'll leave it at
dangerous.
that.
It's dangerous if you think about it in that way, and it's powerful if you think about it in that way. Because um, people will ascribe not only value but understanding to things that they either learn about or they feel. Now, quite often we have been told that red means danger. Um, but red depends on the intensity of the red, can be bright, it's fun, it is, attractive, is perhaps the most attractive if you want people to look at it. And and you could go on. People would say that green uh, is not a good thing to look at. And some people say it is grief. Yet, nowadays, you might be surprised at how so many people have gravitated towards the use of green. And there are many greens. There are many greens. Green is not just one green. There are tints and shades, different values of a color. And yes, where you have a certain environment, the environment helps to dictate what you become accustomed to. If I were living in England and I have um, 8 months of cold and cloudy days, etc., but then my thinking and the work that I produce will also show that environment. Unless I went somewhere else where I'm seeing the sun and the blue seas and the yellow flowers or the joy, then I will think that, well, okay, I like that happiness that I learned, so let me do something like that.
Seems as though you would take the happy space, the bright colors, and produce them in the dreary environment to enliven that environment.
Yes,
But I wouldn't do the reverse.
well, it depends on how you feel. Because if you are feeling sad and depressed, etc., you, the artist, might also want to say how you are feeling because don't forget the art that you produce is what you feel, what you want to say. Sometimes you want to say something to everybody else, and you are saying, well, I am depressed. So you do things to show that.
Okay.
You might be depressed, but you don't want people to know that. And you decide, look, I could make everything I do look vibrant, happy, explosive. And you can go on and find words to suit what you want to show. Because in the end, the art that is produced is how you want it to come over to the onlooker, to the viewer. Whether it is visual art or performing art. I mean, if you are performing a song, for example, you can take lyrics and make them seem happy, or you can make them seem sad. And you will use the attendant behavior to demonstrate that sadness, that color, that anything that you want to show, you can do because you're an artist. An artist is not just the person who is painting or drawing. And look at the sculptures. A sculpture can be realistic or it could just be suggestions of the realism. And whichever one you show, there are persons who will like or dislike.
I say that. I know we're using up a lot of time, and I apologize for that because I know your time is limited. But the one thing that I wanted to get in is this thing called abstract art puzzles me. I see a piece of metal or a piece of wood or uh, some other material warped or wrapped or bent in strange shapes, and somebody says it's abstract art, right? So what's that? And nobody can tell me what it is. Can you say a little bit about abstract art before we close out this session?
Well, you use the word abstract.
But that's what they call it.
Yes, because people use the word to explain what they understood of what they're looking at, right? And the abstraction is just merely making use of what you have, making what you think, and the way that you can do it. The persons who look at work um, by some artists and call it um, child art or the art that shows that the person didn't have much thinking or many opportunities to see things, so they still remain in the child stage. So they look at that sort of art. But then there are others who like it because it is different from the photographic type of art, the classical type of work. I mean, when I get the opportunity to look at work by YF from the US, or looking at work by Rembrandt, I see such details. It is amazing that someone will take the time to produce such work. So any art gallery that has the variety of work in it is more likely to be of a of an attraction to those who want to see it. Now, attraction does not mean that it will translate to be buying it, because that again means that you will have to have the means to buy. And I know that you will want in your art gallery to be making money. So that is why in our gallery you will try to have in it things that are smaller prices or smaller size. And what people do nowadays is to do prints. You print the original work, and the, the facilities that they are now to do a print that makes it look like the real thing. Well, a person doesn't mind having a false a false original in their home. Um, so you charge for the false original and the fact that you have to go through all the processes to create the look of the original, and you charge a small amount. I mean, limited editions, and some of the things that people do when they're setting up a studio or a gallery, to think about those things, because you are at the end of each day that you are able to um, go away with something. You don't want to say to a person, well, um, I am selling this for 3 million, so if you don't want it, go long. so, so
Yeah,
you
very
print,
well.
you print some, and the limited edition prints sell, right? Um, so there are a variety of aspects that you will need to consider when you are thinking of setting up an art gallery wherever you set it up. I don't know if I have been able to help you to understand the hard work that goes into setting up a business, our business especially. Um, but they are the same kinds of things that you would need to do if you were opening a supermarket. The thing is, a supermarket, people want to eat. So and food runs out every week or every day sometimes. So they will they will spend money on getting something to eat, but they will not necessarily spend money on getting a work of art.
We can create some edible art.
But you see, edible art, you have edible art when you go to, say, a hotel and they have created also a sculpture out of ice, or they've taken the fruit and created such beautiful work of art. But then somebody like me will not want to eat it because it's so beautiful, I don't want to destroy it. So when you use your artistic ability to set a table and set a plate that is so beautiful, so artistic, so creative that some people will admire it, and some people will let me get into it. But then that depends too on having tasted the first bit, whether or not the art is still in it.
Matt, it has been a pleasure hanging out with you today, learning from you. It has been inspirational. I've learned a lot. I'm sure my partner, my co-host, has also picked up a couple of tips about art today. And I'm going to turn it back over to him because I know we might have to, this was a very exciting program, and I'll turn it back now to Rossler. Rossler, back to you, my friend.
Not a doctor yet. Maybe one day. But thank you so much for being on the show, Dr. Agard. We really appreciate you answering all the questions that we had, and I'm sure the information that you gave today will help a lot of our listeners. There isn't a direct way for them to contact you, but we are available to get them in contact with you. They can send me an email at Rosler, R-O-S-L-E-R, at thinkingoutloudinc.com. Once again, Rosler, R-O-S-L-E-R, at thinkingoutloud.com, or they can call me directly at 561-231-9620 with any comments or questions. And again, we definitely appreciate you joining us today, Dr. Agard. And thank you, Mr. Phipps, again, for assisting and coordinating.
Thank you very much for having me.
It was a pleasure speaking with both of you. And again, have a great day, and thank you for your time.